Hello my friends and welcome back to EVE Online with me Mark from DadX, and we're back in the 2 Gilas and a Tengu fleet on another 6 out of 10. In fact, the second sight of my 6 out of 10 from the last video. We've just cleared the first mob, the first room in effect, although that one's ungated, remember, so if you get combat scanned they can land right on you. So once we're beyond this gate we're a little bit safer. Local is quite quiet. We're a little bit more relaxed than we were the last time when we were in those furiously busy faction warfare systems. And we're taking the opportunity to recharge our shields and our capacitors, quite importantly, before we go on through. The Tengu's gone ahead, start taking the damage, and we are the escort Gilas. So remember, our priority is to take down all the frigates that are going to scram web as soon as possible, then start applying damage across the site. There is the energy neutralizing tower, which is just locked up there, so we'll get onto him as soon as possible. We've certainly got a little bit more tidy at running these sites, as you always will do, obviously, with repetition. I'm quite enjoying the formation of flying with the Gilas. This is quite a nice, easy way to fly. We get the neutralizer tower taken down nice and quickly before it can do any real harm to us. No one has to go and rep. It's quite cool. For those of you that did miss the last video, we basically got a 1.4 bil Tengu, which can do 6 out of 10s by itself, but it is a bit of a stretch and it's a little bit hairy. So Yepfar, Dex that is, has taken to bring in an alt of his, Miss Valazy, in fact an alt we share. It does confuse people, that's quite funny too. In a Gila as a little bit of a backup, take up some of the aggro, kill those frigates a bit quicker, just take some of the stress out of the running. And obviously, why not bring a second Gila? It can only help. So certainly in those faction warfare, more hectic systems, getting in and getting out as quick as possible, just taking as much DPS as we could, was definitely sensible. Here it's just making things quicker and easier. My Gila is the absolute bog standard passive tank Gila, nothing fancy about it at all. Miss Valazy's Gila is a very similar fit. It's got a little bit more passive shield recharge than my one, but they both come in at about 350 mil. So we've got a 1.4 bil Tengu and two 350 mil Gilas. We're firing Caldari Navy Scourge ammo most of the time, Rage when it's just a battleship, and drone wise we're flying Caldari Navy Vespers, our tanky best friends. So it's a bit of a grind through this site, as you saw in the last video, again assuming that you did see it. The video footage is running at 2.5 times speed just to get through this. If you want a little bit more detail on the site itself, have a look at the last video. This one we're going to have a little bit of a chat, so we're just going to plod on through. This low sec is a little bit more known to us. We know who is a stranger in local, as it were. We know a few people. There's a few blues around, more to do with Yepfar than me, because he's been hanging around here the last week. In fact, he got a drop off of 1 6 out of 10. I'm going to tell you right now, because it will lead me into my little topic for the day, maybe. He did a 6 out of 10. It dropped 51 mil. It was the Overseer's personal effects and one tracking enhancer, I think. A compact one, but not a good one. So these can drop as little as that, 51 million. Remember, you've got to run 2 sites. There's no loot on the first site. So that can happen. Obviously, from the title of this video, you had a pretty good hint there that that's not going to happen on this run. But of course, even with the 51 mil drop, he did probably get about 100 or 120 mil in bounties, and he got a nice little polish on his security status. And running both sites, allowing for a little bit of travel and a cup of tea is probably an hour and a half. So maybe 150 mil in an hour and a half. So that's 100 mil an hour. That was a bad 6 out of 10, as bad as it can get. But the subject I'm really kind of getting towards here is the feast and famine of running sites, whether it's to get the loot or of course to get the escalations, to run the better sites, or ratting on the belts. You never know quite what you're going to get, so it's a very hard thing to quantify overall in terms of ISK per hour, which, as we know, is one of the fundamental kind of measures of any activity in the game. However, should the ISK be the only issue? It's certainly not for me. There are certainly ways you can play the game that you can really calculate. If I play for 10 hours, I'm going to end up with 300 mil. And those sorts of ways are very, very useful for us in the way that we play. If we suddenly have to make a load of money because we've lost a load of ships, I can promise you that Dexter was grinding tier 5 Abyss, which was the top tier back then, when he had a over 3 bill asset safety bill to pay to release a lot of our equipment due to a little admin error, or shall we say a diplomatic oversight. But that's all done and dusted. But he did it, so he knew he needed to make money. He wanted to make it as fast as possible, so he just went and ground out some Abyss. Now, it might have been in the same amount of time, could have made just as much money drifting around low sec, scanning for sites, running sites, getting escalations, running the escalations, checking the belts, getting the Mordu, getting the clone soldiers, and if you're really lucky, getting just a random Shadow Serpentis rat that turns up, that even though he's a flimsy frigate, drops you over 400 mil in the form of some very, very nice implant. But it is completely unpredictable, so certainly if you need X amount of ISK as soon as possible, we'd probably find a way that we could be a little bit more measured and manage the situation rather than get out there and hope for the best. But what I'm going to do, I think, is I'm going to actually, with one of the alts, set down some time and maybe each day do 2 hours, which is reasonable, I think, from the point of view of the average player who only has a limited amount of time to play their beloved video game. How much can I make in a week with an alt just doing the regular low sec stuff? Might get in some fights, of course. Might even lose a ship, so there'll be a bit of a profit loss account going on, maybe. But I might give that a go. Let me know in a comment what you think down below. That'd be cool. I think that might be quite interesting. Is a week long enough? That would be what? If I could do that 14 hours and see how much I've made, is that a long enough period of time for it to be kind of a bit of a guide? Let me know what you think, so I could say, yeah, if you do this over the course of a week, it'll average out to this. Maybe I'll extend that for a month and see how it goes. But I know exactly what's going to happen. There's going to be days when I can't find an escalation, I don't get a decent loot drop, maybe I get murdered in a gate camp, who knows. There's going to be other days when I just find a Shadow Serpentis, I find a beautiful couple of escalations, some 6 out of 10s in some nice quiet systems, something like that, have a brilliant day, maybe even get a kill. But that is basically why I prefer, in general, playing in this kind of who knows what's going to happen way, to just sticking to the same activity and doing it all the time. And Eve is such an amazing game, like, for people like me, I guess, and for those of you who are a bit like me, that I can play Eve, but be basically doing a very, very different thing, whether it's playing through missions and just tweaking and playing with fits and looking at that side of thing and efficiency and ISK per hour, because that's what that's all about. The Abyss is great, but again, if you do enough, it does become kind of repetitive. It does have the randomness built into it, but for me, if I just want to get out and play some Eve, I can't think of a better way of doing it than this. And, you know, the accounts clearly show that we make money doing it, and these videos are showing that too. But having said that, I'm always happy to show those runs when I get the rubbish loot drop, nothing happens, I just die, whatever. But it's enjoyable content for me. 2.5 hours in that praxis, I'm going to mention it again, running a 5 out of 10, getting the minimal loot drop after all my effort. It was really fun because I had to work at that site, get that praxis in, have a plan, figure it out, and I executed it. And yeah, I was very satisfied that I had, and that to me is worth a little bit more than a couple of 100 extra million ISK here and there. And if you're not into the more action orientated areas of the game, or you just want a little break for them, of course there's industry, there's PI, there's mining, there's exploration, hacking, all of that kind of stuff. And what I tend to do is every so often the hangars are getting a little bit bare, so I spend a week with me industry alt running loads of production stuff, doing some industry, finally tidying up hangars, doing that kind of stuff. I might move to PI if it's not doing so well, have a little look at that. I might just spend a week trading on the markets and messing about, seeing if I can make a bit of money doing that. Every so often there's just a big stack of loot in the hangars and no cash in the wallet, so yeah, go and play trading and get rid of all the bling loot that we've been piling up in hangars for the last couple of weeks. So the variety for me is built into the game, pretty much to the extent where I'm almost playing a different game in the same universe and sharing the same resources with the mad buggers that go and run combat missions in stupid low sec systems, you know. It's all part of my Eve melting pot. So I couldn't say I do this is how I play Eve. This is probably the fundamental basis of my Eve, is just living in low sec and doing that. but there are all those little diversions for me. To be honest, if all there was to Eve was just low sec site running and a bit of fighting now and again, I would not have been playing it 12 years after I started, almost 12 years after I started with my oldest alt. But here I am. But I better get back to talking about this site a little bit. For those of you that have been following the footage, I hope you've noticed that it's quite a smooth, nice operation. We've gone through it nice and smoothly. Locals stayed quiet, but we're fast approaching the money shot. So let's focus back on the Gilas doing their thing. Really impressed with the way this is working out, actually, with the two Gilas and the Tengu. Again, the Gilas at the end of the day are expendable. That's what they're there for. They are the escort Gilas. Proper little fleet tactic. We've got our little capital ship and his escorts. And there we go. That is showing over 1 billion ISK in the loot ship. I think we'll find it's a bit more than that, but we'll check when we're back in the hangar. Add on 100 mil or so in bounties and we're well over 1 billion. That is the highest loot drop we can remember. Certainly when we get back to the hangar and do the maths, which we shall. We did manage to get just over 1 bill one day once we found that one of the modules was worth more than the estimated price. That one's showing over 1 bill already, and usually faction modules are undervalued in those screens. Right, so there's the bounties and all that good stuff going on right there. Yeah, I've just checked the prices on Eve Praisal, and the micro warp drive is actually worth about 850 mil. In fact, Yetfar sold one of them the day before we ran this site, so it's definitely worth about 850 mil. And maybe an extra 100 mil for the armor repairer. So we could be looking at maybe 1.4, 1.3 bill dropped in that site, which is pretty good going, I think you might agree. But again, next site might be another one that drops 51 mil. But this is the kind of way we play. It might not suit everybody, but it definitely suits us. Okay, my friends, and the giveaway this week is for this beautiful, handsome Tempest skin for your Minmatar battleship. It's a cracker. I do like this one. If you'd like one of these skins, comment down below. Remember to leave your in-game name. This week's comments, tell me about your low-sec life. How do you feel about just taking the losses, having fun, making some ISK along the way, rather than treating your whole Eve career as one giant spreadsheet and living up to that stereotype of us? For me, it's more about the lols than it is about the ISK balance. But there you go. That's just me. You do it your way. I'm not saying I'm right. Your comment can, of course, be about why this isn't for you, not your cup of tea. You'd rather do something else. That's a completely valid point of view. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this. It's been a bit more of a chatty vid than a facts and figures based how-to vid. If you've enjoyed it, please leave us a like down below. Any comments, always welcome. And do remember to include your in-game name if you want to have a chance of winning this handsome skin. But for now, my friends, take care of yourselves and each other. Fly safe, fly brave. Remember, Even is believing, and goodbye.